Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the ODPP Café. My name is Anita Onuko. I'm your host for the show. Karibu sana for the show. It's been a while since we were on air, but we are back. And we encourage you and welcome you to engage with us on the show. We are live on Facebook. We are also on YouTube and as well as Twitter. We encourage you to engage with us, ask questions. We shall find time to respond to you live or maybe later. You can also DM or go into our inboxes on the social media pages and we'll find time to respond to you. So we are on Facebook at ODPP Kenya, Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions Kenya. We are on Twitter at ODPP_KE, at ODPP Café as well. We are also on YouTube at the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions. So karibu sana. You can invite a friend to invite a friend, or you can invite someone to also listen to, engage with us on the show. So as always, before we start the show, we give you a quick roundup of the courts. Maybe there are stories you may have missed, and we just want to share some of those, not all of them, because definitely a lot has been going on through our social media channels as well. So I will just take you through a quick court roundup, just to talk about some of the cases that we have had in the recent past. Just a minute. I'll start with the first case. There's a man who's to serve 20 years behind bars. A 36-year-old man is set to serve 20 years in prison for defiling a 15-year-old girl. An Eldoret court has sentenced a 36-year-old man to 20 years imprisonment for defiling a 15-year-old girl. The court heard that the girl's stepfather had sent her to the house of the accused. The accused is Daniel Wafula at night. The victim informed the court that, unknown to her, the stepfather had followed her to Wafula's house. As soon as she entered, her mouth was covered, and when she looked back, she saw that it was her stepfather. So the stepfather is 36, the girl is 15, and looks like she saw the perpetrator and while in the act, and definitely gave the court that information. The court heard that Wafula covered her mouth, defiled her, and cautioned her not to tell her mother. He then gave her 850 shillings, and while on her way back home, she met the stepfather who took the money from her. So that was quite a sad story there. The next story I have is about a man who's fined 3 million or served 5 years in jail for illegal possession of elephant tusks. Mariakani Court Principal Magistrate, Honorable Stephen Ngii, has fined Raphael Nzao to pay 3 million or serve a 5-year jail term for being in possession of 4 pieces of elephant tusks weighing 12 kgs, worth 1.2 million, without a permit. However, Honorable Ngii acquitted him on count 1 of dealing in wildlife of a specified endangered species without a permit, citing lack of enough evidence stating that a prima facie case had not been established against him. The prosecution, through Ms. Angela Fuchaka, presented 8 witnesses to testify in the trial. So that's about illegal wildlife trade. The next case is about a teacher in Kirinyaga, or a Kirinyaga teacher was arraigned over alleged sodomy. A secondary school teacher in Kirinyaga was on Thursday, 20th April, arraigned at a Baricho Law Court over alleged sodomy. William Kinyua Mutua Njau is accused of contempt of court for not attending a mention of the case on Monday, 17th April. On the second count, the suspect is accused with committing, committing an indecent act with an adult. In his defense, Kinyua told Baricho Senior Resident Magistrate David Ireri that he failed to show up in court because he was sick. The case was adjourned and hearing set for July 24th, 2023. You must remember the case of the demolition in Westlands a few months ago. The Court of Appeal has extended orders seeking to punish auctioneer Zakaria Baraza for disobeying a court order for the demolition of a couple's house in Westlands last year. It was last year, actually. The auctioneer had earlier filed a substantive appeal against the ruling which found him guilty of contempt of court. Justice David Musinga, Kathuria Minoti, and Imana Laibuta said the ruling to serve a jail term cannot be undone. meaning he still has to go through that. He has to serve jail term for that contempt of court. Baraza and Lariak Properties want the court to quash the decision delivered on 25th November 2022 by the Environment and Land Court Judge Oscar Angote, which found the auctioneer in contempt of court. So the ruling stays, and Zakaria Baraza must serve time in jail. And finally, this is another case. A Narok's defiler sentence reduced to 30 years after he appealed that the charge sheet was defective. His plea was unequivocal. It was not unequivocal. His right under Article 49(1)(f) of the Constitution to be presented to court within 24 hours of his arrest was infringed. Also, he complained no reasons were given by the First Appellate Court for denying him a retrial, and that his mitigation was not taken into account, resulting in a harsh and excessive sentence. So this is about a guy in Narok who's trying to appeal against his case. The court allowed his appeal, reducing his sentence to 30 years from the crime committed in 2012. So that's a quick roundup of the courts. Like I said, it's possibly stories you may have missed or that you didn't hear of in the news or on social media, but clearly a lot of things happen in the courts. And the disclaimer we normally give on the show is that it's not exhaustive. It's not everything that happened in the court, but just a quick roundup. Of course, a lot has happened. Well, so once again, karibu sana to the show. Today we want to talk about children and their exposure to online activities. The Lawyers Without Borders had organized a training this week for prosecutors and other state and non-state actors to discuss children in conflict with the law, in contact with the law and in conflict with the law, and especially through online exposure. So giving the keynote speech was the Secretary of Public Prosecution, Dorcas Oduor, yesterday. And this was now during the roundtable that was hosted by Lawyers Without Borders. They were exploring the current status and strategic priorities for trafficking in person protection, investigation and prosecution in Kenya. There were justice sector actors that were present. There was a DCI, there was, of course, ODPP, and other state actors like the Directorate of Children's Services and non-state actors. The discussion took some time to talk about sexual exploitation of children, and especially online sexual exploitation of children. As part of her keynote address, Madam Dorcas Oduor said that it is our collective duty to work towards the protection of children from sexual offenses and online exploitation. We must ensure that all children are safe, protected, and their rights are upheld. This requires a multi-sectoral approach that involves all stakeholders, including law enforcement agencies, prosecutors, service providers, and civil society organizations. So most of these agencies were present during this training that took place at the Norfolk, and it's going to be completed today with non-state actors and frontline workers who deal with children in their line of duty. But today on the show, I am joined by Prosecutor Linda, and I want her to introduce herself. This is not like her first time on the show. I bet she's been here before. So Linda, I'll just give you time to introduce yourself and tell us what you do.
Okay, thank you, Anita, for the invitation. Yeah. My names are Linda Dambiri. I'm a Principal Prosecution Counsel. I prosecute within the Children Division, within the ODPP, and also at the Children's Court at Milimani. So what I do mostly is work with prosecutions involving children who are in contact with the law, who are victims and witnesses of crime, and also children who are in conflict with the law. So those are children who've committed offenses. So that, in a nutshell, that is me, and I'm happy to be here.
Karibu sana to the show once again, and thank you for honoring our invite.
Thank you.
As last minute as it was.
Oh, thank you.
So the training by LUOB at Norfolk, I know you were part of it. And did you get a certificate? Because I got a certificate.
Yes.
I want to show everyone that I got a certificate yesterday. But there was something I learned that was very new to me, and I bet it's also new to people who are watching us and listening. The term OCSEA, what does it mean? When I hear someone say OCSEA, what does it mean?
Yeah, okay, so OCSEA is...
it's OCSEA.
OCSEA. Is a short form for online child sexual exploitation and abuse. So these are acts which are committed by offenders, either through use of ICT or the internet, which actually are exploitation of children, sexual exploitation of children through the online space, through either ICT by use of phones. They take pictures, sexually explicit pictures of children. They usually also use the internet to do grooming of children. So it manifests itself in different forms. There is the child sexual abuse material, which is now the representation. So that's the videos, the photos, which are sexual, explicit in nature, which shows either sexual activities or sexual parts of children. We also have online grooming, which is also done through the use of medium, ICT medium. And this is where an offender actually builds a relationship of trust with a child for later on. You see, you build, I'm your friend, you know, you're beautiful, you know, all those things. So they prop up this child for, in the end, to exploit this child. So afterwards, after they've done the online grooming, they've already now built the trust. Now they start asking for things, favors. I want a picture of you. It can even start with just a selfie. Then they say, no, now go. And you know, for children, sometimes boundaries, they might not really know boundaries. So they continue till a point now it can get to now the other manifestation, which is extortion, where now through those self-generated images by the child, the offender now will start asking for something else. I have to meet you. If I don't meet you, I'll post this a photo of yours on Facebook or on a site or something of the sort. So the child is so worried, is so fearful, yeah? So they now start doing whatever it is. So it can even now move from online to offline, where now this person says, now we have to meet. And now it gets to now physical now abuse of the child. So it can even be things like now defilement and so many other things. It can also lead to now even live streaming. That's something that we are now seeing being.
Are these things common in
yes,
this country?
Yes, they are. They are.
Because it feels like even during the presentations, that it felt like a movie.
Yeah.
Like the things I heard and watched, I'm like, in this country.
Yes. Yes.
So then before they go offline, there is access.
Yes.
And so does it mean that we as parents ought to be worried about our children online?
Yes. Actually, when you even ask, is this common?
Yeah.
Look at your child. Look at now even 1-year-old children. How are parents pacifying these children? Isn't it through the phone, through YouTube? Yeah. By the time a child is 5 years, they can do things on your phone that you actually don't even know. You can't even if you're saying monitoring, how do you monitor when they get into game sites, they get into maybe social chatting sites?
We live in that age where they must at least learn, if you want to compete with the developing world.
Yes.
So we say, we need to allow them access so that they can also be able to, they don't discover these things in college, like we did. Yes. So now, how else do you protect them online from accessing these things? I
think as parents, we have a duty to talk to our children, isn't it? Let them know that there are bad people also on the internet. Of course, the good thing about the internet is that it has opened a whole new world for people. Even for us as adults, you can be an influencer and get paid, isn't it? There's so many things. It's an income stream. Yeah. You get to learn a lot. I'm sure you get some of your points for law. You've not done law, but you can, of course, go and look at it. It helps so much, isn't it? So it's getting for you to sit down with your child, because no one will be able to sit down with your child. It's only you who can sit down with your child and tell them that there are supposed to be limits within this use of the online space. That if someone chats you, come and tell me. If they're telling you this, come and tell me. Have an open discussion with your child. Because a lot of parents is, if a child comes and tells you, Mommy, there's this person who's disturbing me, maybe on the internet site, either you become harsh to your child or you beat them. So this child is probably being extorted. Sending pictures to someone and it's the problem with the internet
Because
also
of
is,
you as the mother.
yes, it's all over the world. It
Yeah.
can be to someone in Europe. You don't know where these photos can actually eventually end up, or on the dark web, isn't it? So just have an open conversation with your child. What we're actually even doing as ODPP and even with stakeholders is really talking about what OCSEA is, so that people know that these things are happening. Yeah.
I honestly didn't know what OCSEA was.
Yeah.
And I am here, so imagine somebody out there.
Yeah, so we have to, like what you're doing with ODPP Café, what we were doing for the past 2 days with the prosecutors and also with different stakeholders, so that at least we can spread this message that these things are happening and where can you go for assistance and where can you go for help if you're a parent, if you're even a child, because right now even children can report. We have 116, so all these things, but it has to start with the parent.
Can you foolproof your child against this exploitation online?
As long as your child has a device, you can't foolproof, but you can at least give your child these measures. How can I protect myself online? Yeah, because you can't tell a child not to go to YouTube or not to go to Facebook or not.
Even say YouTube, sometimes you put on music. Could even just be gospel music or a baby's whatever, those Peppa Pig, and then an ad comes and it's music that is not, what is it called? It's X-rated music. So my question is, to what extent are people like organizations like ODPP talking to these organizations like Facebook, YouTube, TikTok to protect children? Because it looks like, even if you say you're going to YouTube Kids, first of all, YouTube Kids or something, those channels, they may not even have what your child wants. So you open up the other YouTube, your YouTube, adult YouTube, and then every other time, mtoto anaona Peppa Pig, a music video happens, and what is being done is insane.
Yeah. What I know for these service providers who provide us with this chatting, online chatting and stuff like that information, they usually also have their own regulations. Some of them are registered in the US, Europe and the rest, but they do have their own self-regulation. Like for Facebook, a child, I think below either 13, cannot, there's a type of categorization of how a child can also maybe get into Facebook and the rest, and for that they've even restricted the type of maybe friends and requests and even the type of content that's ads that they can give to the child. For things like YouTube, they've given you YouTube Kids, isn't it? That is the safer space for this child. We also have parental controls in this particular sites that you can do parental controls, so that also helps. And of course, you can't just give a child, tell them just to do and also not regulate. You need to also be there trying to see what is it that this child is watching, and also even limiting time. You can't let a child also go out and play. They're on holiday, isn't it? If they are doing maybe some research, they can do for 2 hours. Let them go also and play outside, so that it's not, then there's YouTube there, okay. So they start also now getting into other sites.
Yeah, even Masomo sites are not safe. I was listening to these things yesterday at Norfolk, that even educational sites, sometimes even those providing those access to those sites exploit children. Yeah,
and also we now have regulators like the Communication Authority of Kenya. They do regulations for ISPs, internet service providers, and the rest. So in terms of even pulling down content that they're saying that is not age appropriate for children, we have the communication, we have all these other bodies. Yes, they actually do. And I think also with the repeated, you see the good thing also with the online space, right now we have what they're calling ChatGPT. It keeps evolving. So we're also evolving with it. You might think maybe it's a bit slow, but they're doing something.
They're doing something, yeah. You talked about grooming. The grooming I have heard of, nile mtaya kukatia kasichana, kaniiba, unamlikia sweetie, nini. But now again, there's grooming online. So what does that entail?
So this is as I've said, establishing or building trust with a child. It's actually defined under the Children's Act 2022. It was a bit progressive because it also talks about now things like what are obscene materials. It introduces things like cyberbullying and grooming. So it's building this trust with a child, with, of course, the main purpose of maybe sexual activity, sexual exploitation later on. So it can actually take, it's not a one-day affair, like I come to a child's, then I tell them you're beautiful. They're patient. They're very patient because right now, things like human trafficking and things like that, they are getting so much money. If you're going to the dark webs and stuff like that, or you're sending this picture, it is for monetary gain. It's not really mostly for your own pleasure. Most of the time it is for their own monetary gain. So it is a lucrative business. So they, like the way you took patience to learn something, maybe your tool of trade, they also take time to groom. So when I say sometimes to even cut off, if you're talking to your child, they'll tell you about friends they're meeting online. You can actually even also go and see, they can show you the messages, and you'll be able to see this is not what my child is supposed to be talking with people online.
So part of the speech for SPP, she said, I'm aware that some forms of online child sexual exploitation and abuse are not treated as criminal offenses under the Kenyan law, like live streaming of child sexual abuse and sexual extortion. How is it not treated as a criminal offense?
Okay, what we have, I'll say online and offline. These offenses happen online and offline. So you might find that the grooming is happening online. It goes now to offline, where now it's physical, there's physical contact between the offender and the child, and now they are videotaping and it's being live streamed. Isn't it?
So that live streaming is not considered criminal?
What we don't have now, especially something called an offense against live streaming, but we have child pornography. If you're found producing this material, if you're found distributing this material, you can be charged for child pornography, which is an offense under the Computer Misuse and Cybercrimes Act. So we have at least there's a way. It's not all lost that that if you find a child here being defiled and it's being live streamed, it's not all, because they're producing, isn't it, this material, they are distributing it. That is child pornography, because it talks about production, distribution, producing, distribution, and possession of this material. So if you can find it, then we can charge under child pornography. We can charge, because most of them there's some form of either an indecent act with a child, or there's defilement with this particular child, or even sexual communication with this child. There are other little offenses or other offenses that we can also add to this charge sheet, that we can charge as a whole for this particular, so that it's not just, we will not just charge with the child pornography. If we can prove that there was maybe physical abuse of this child, we will also charge now for the defilement, because of the physical maybe injuries and stuff like that, and what the child tells us. So it's not all lost.
That's
and we are progressive. Right now we also have the Children's Act. As I said, it talks about the online grooming. It talks about cyberbullying. We didn't have cyberbullying before. It talks about cyberbullying of a child. It talks about solicitation, all these things, and creates an offense for online abuse. So
it's quite progressive.
It's quite progressive.
So when I had that, my jaw was on the floor, like, for real, this thing is not a crime. How? But thank God there's hope. So we cannot not talk about the decision to charge when you talk about these things. So what do you look at when you're making the decision to charge in such cases? Okay, so decision to charge is, even in OCSEA cases, is guided by the decision to charge guidelines, which the ODPP has come up with. And we do the two-stage test, of course. We have the evidential test, so there has to be evidence, Anita. We can't just, because we are shocked, we still have to we still have to have the evidence, isn't it? The evidence. Like what sort of evidence can get someone, I mean, can make you now decide this one is going ahead?
Of course, what the DCI usually do, right now they have communication with, it's called the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. So they get cyber tips from this, when you're saying what are these, the YouTubes and the what doing. So when they actually get information that they deem, exploitation of a child, they actually report to the National Center of Missing and Exploited Children. And if it emanates from this region of Africa, like in Kenya now, they have a linkage to the Directorate of Criminal Investigations, the DCI. So with the cyber tips now, they can start the process of investigation. So it's not all lost. If something if it's flagged, it will be reported and the DCI will get information about it. So once they start, they'll of course, whatever it is that they do in terms of investigations. But when it comes to us, of course, in terms of evidence, we will. Some might be victimless. OCSEA is usually, most of the time, a victimless crime. Because you might be found with the possession of this material, but we are not able to get the child who was...
Why?
It can even be something that was flagged in Kenya, but it emanates from maybe something that was produced in Nigeria. You see, that one will have either to report to Nigeria and tell them there's this child from Nigeria maybe who is being exploited, but the person who we found in Kenya is probably going to be charged with child pornography because they were in possession of this child pornographic material. So we look at the images, isn't it? Okay, we may have the victim, so we might have the evidence of the victim telling us what exactly this person has been doing, or if it's extortion, what they've been telling them to do, and the rest of all that. We'll also have the images, the videos. For us to produce this digital evidence in court, it has to be through a certificate. So the person,
there's 6 certificates you must have.
Actually, it's a certificate, but it contains a couple of things inside. How were you able to extract this information? What did you use to extract? Is it signed? How are you authorized to extract this material? So that is produced by and done by the DCI. There's also chain of custody. We have to check how are you able to get to this person's house, and get their things.
Phone or their laptop.
How do you have them? Because we'll also use their phones and their laptops. So the chain of custody, how did you retrieve? How did you store it? All those things, come into play when you talk about evidential test, because this is digital evidence. It's not just me coming to testify if I am the aggrieved victim. So we have that. We have medical reports, because as I said, for this type of cases, they might be physical offenses that might have happened for this child, as well as online. We don't say that we will not prosecute some and we will prosecute some. We actually compound them in the same charge sheet. So you might have defilement, which you might need maybe medical reports and the rest. Now, and also the online offenses like sexual communication with that child. So you'll need the messages and stuff like that. So in terms of evidence and in public interest, this is now it's an emerging crime. It's actually one of the fastest growing crimes, because the online space, it's really opening up. So in public interest, we really we are prosecuting this offense.
Like when we say it is one of the fastest growing crimes right now, isn't that quite unfortunate?
Yes, it is.
What is fueling it, except for the free internet?
Access.
It's immoral.
It's access. It's access. You see people, physical contact, and you see as you might have placed your child safely at home. But because of access to the internet, we are now a global village, as we call it, isn't it? So even the abuse might be happening to your child, but by someone who is, I don't know, somewhere we can't even imagine, but somewhere else. So that's the access is what is maybe making it, and the fact that it's now connecting people so fast is what is making it one of the fastest growing offenses.
It's actually interesting to talk about cross-border. So my other question would be, what is your approach in prosecuting crimes, such cases that involve international actors, those criminals, the syndicates that operate these things? How do you do it? Do you have like agreements with or international instruments that support you?
Yeah, of course. Mostly it's done through mutual legal assistance, so that we are talking about cooperation between countries on exchange and sharing of information. So we do have the Act in Kenya, and with that, at least we are able to cooperate with different countries. Let's say if something happened in the UK or there's something that we might need, we can use now mutual legal assistance to get some form of information. We also have issues like extradition. We have had, though not through the online space, but crimes being committed in Kenya to children and by offenders who are either nationals of like the UK or the US, and they've actually been able to be prosecuted and having our children testify in Kenya, and they're actually being sentenced in those jurisdictions, because some of them, maybe because they know they might be caught, they run away. But once it's reported, there is a way we can link up, and the matter is investigated, and they actually even are sentenced. So it's not all lost, because we are saying it's not all lost. No, it's not all lost. We can we because of extradition, because of mutual legal assistance, actually we can be able to prosecute these crimes. And because it's something that is coming up, of course we are also trying to rethink how we are
have to catch up with trends.
Trends. What are best practices that are being used in different jurisdictions to nab these people. So we have exchange programs. People are going, we talk. What we have been doing with Lawyers Without Borders, they brought for us people who are prosecutors, people who are judges in the US, to tell us how they've been experiencing this particular offense and what they've been doing. So at least you get to learn. And
I know this is an ambush. Do you have a story that stands out for you in this OCSEA?
Well, not that I prosecuted, but there's a case that had been finalized in Mombasa. The accused, it was last year, where a house girl was abusing a 4-year-old child. So they were abusing the child and taking images and sharing with someone that they met online. So even when we're talking about online, it's not the child necessarily who is sharing the images. It can be even a caregiver, can be a parent, it can be a caregiver. So they were sharing with someone on Facebook, and it was flagged, the way I've said, that the NECMEC and DCI and cyber tips and the rest. So they actually were arraigned in court, their house help. And they were charged with defilement, and they were charged with also child pornography, and they got life for the defilement, and they got 10 years for the child pornography. So I think when you see such good cases, there's hope, because at least they are being finalized. At least we are seeing something. And I think with what we're doing with, when you talk about stakeholders, what we're doing with the DCI, they have the Anti-Human Trafficking and Child Protection Unit, and we do assist in terms of either prosecution-led investigation and advice files, because they usually bring to us where they might need advice, and we do tell them points to cover and the rest. So there is a way we are collaborating also between the ODPP and the DCI, at least in terms of ensuring that these perpetrators are being nabbed, and also even joint trainings, because as you said yesterday, we did trainings, and there were DCI prosecutors involved and also investigators who are involved, because our experience, that sharing of experiences is how I'll tell you, you need this, then you tell me, but I'm having difficulty getting this, so how do I get maybe this particular thing, or they're telling us with the certificate, this is what we use, so that even as we are leading questions or even doing our submissions, we're able to understand these are, if it's software, this is the software that they're using or something of the sort, so that it's even easier for us to tell the court this is what is happening.
Are there alternatives to prosecution in OCSEA cases? Do you consider diversion, plea bargain?
Well, for in terms of plea bargaining, we know the law tells us that we can't plea bargain with on sexual offenses. And even in terms of diversion, saying that you're going to divert someone for child pornography, that might not really augur well. So for us, it's expressed in law that for sexual offenses we are not allowed to plea bargain and the rest.
What do you do when you get a child?
Well, for children,
this?
Yeah, for children, it's very it's very sad that you might have children involved, or children who are, because what mostly we are getting in terms of children in conflict is in terms of cyberbullying, children who are bullying other children on the, you know,
what do you do with that? I can't believe those things are just in the movies.
Yeah.
As in children bullying other children online.
Yeah, and I think sometimes, and sometimes what we are saying is that these children, you might find an assault between two children, but what it emanated from is something that happened on the online space, especially teenagers, because we see a lot of this chatting, online chatting and games.
So it's in their two small groups.
Yeah, in their two small groups, you find that they are now bullying each other. Then maybe when they meet, now it escalates into a fight. So what will be presented to you maybe is an assault. But when you dig deeper, you might find that it didn't start there. It started with some form of either cyberbullying. This person maybe was trying to stand up for themselves because of the way this person said they are what, and the rest. So for that one, some of them we've been having protection and care files for some of these children who are maybe just exchanging maybe
what
words.
Does that mean, protection and care files?
Well, we usually talk about protection. This is children officer-led files or processes where at least we know that there's a social worker who is going to be involved in the monitoring of this child, but it's a court process. So they'll bring for us or to the court the reports for these children. They will tell us this is what these children have been doing. They are doing this because their parents are never there, as they're never there, or they don't monitor what they are doing. It has happened for a particular period of time, and so that now you get interventions, especially in terms of cyberbullying. Is it anger management? Is it now safe online practices for these children? They're being taught that. Is it the parent who is now also being roped in? Because a lot of times we say we are rehabilitating children, but we never look at the parent. Where are you when your child is being either harassed or is the one harassing? Yeah, you're hustling, but at least at the end of the day, you should be able to have a conversation, at least even if it's once, even if a day or once a week, or at least an in-depth conversation with your child. Yeah, so that also roping in the parents, so that it's an all-inclusive process. So in terms of, and even for diversion, we're saying the Children's Act talks about diversion for an offense that is not a capital offense. So for some of these maybe petty, low-level crimes being done by children on the online space, we can be able to maybe divert and maybe use protection and care, or use the diversion options that we've been provided for. Yeah, but for the very serious ones, especially for sexual abuse, when you're talking about sexual exploitation, now that one our hands are tied in terms of alternatives.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
Something else. Yesterday, I moderated a session on self-care.
Yeah.
How do you check your engine? We were equating self-care to check engine. You know, when you're driving a car that brings out the light on the dashboard that says check engine. I watched a video during the training that has left me wondering, what did I just watch? Like, how do I unsee what I saw? How do I remove this thing from my head? And then the things I had as well, I don't know how you do it. So how do you do it, Linda, yourself?
Myself. Well, let me first start with what the organization has done, because they now are keen on wellness. There is a doctor who is assigned in terms of wellness and mental health, and at least things like covers, like our cover, which allows us to go for what is it called? To see a doctor if you think you're not coping very well. So in terms of that, I'll say as an organization we have that. I have seen a counselor once or twice, yes, at least just for what is this all about? Maybe this is what my day entailed and the rest. And I think it's very nice. We also do a lot of talking with our peer support, As you said yesterday, you might have watched something that was
unable to unsee.
That you're unable to unsee. So you see, we can talk about it, and I can tell you maybe you breathe in, breathe out when you feel it's overwhelming and stuff like that. So peer support, we do a lot of that also, and also now outside. You go for a hike, you walk,
Exercise.
you exercise, and that actually helps. I like walking, so I walk a lot. So at home, when I get there, I walk, and that helps clear my mind a bit. So in terms of what I'm doing a lot is walking and maybe talking to my peers. Not to myself.
Self-check. Yesterday, a doctor was telling us during that self-care session that because of she deals with child traumas and sexual abuse and stuff like that. This made her, so when her daughter got a child and now it was time for her to go back to work, the grandson was 6 months and they had to hire a nanny. She fought it. She just could not imagine that the grandson now would be the one exposed to the things she's been listening to, and so she decided, she played around with it, tried to dissuade them from getting a house girl. So when finally they had to get one, she had to be the one to interview this house girl. And now she was now talking to her as though now she was in her office and she's trying to figure out, are you okay enough? So do you get to that point yourself sometimes? Like, do you, even the DCI person there was telling us, sometimes because of the cases they handle, you can see a kawaida guy just minding their own business, and then because you're triggered, you start now even following them and wondering, huyu chali anatafuta nani hapa, unajua? So I'm wondering, have you gotten to a point in your duties where you find yourself projecting, and then you self-check, unasema, hey, I think I'm projecting something that happened? Yeah.
I think for me, really, it has been when I see children begging on the street that triggers me. I remember yesterday when we were getting out of the training, I saw a child and I was telling my fellow prosecutor, oh, we just take this child to Central Police Station. Like, we just grab this and take, why are they begging on the street? They don't. They know that the dangers that children are suffering on the street. And that for me, I have ever gone to a police station because I saw a child begging and asking them, why is this child begging on this? Actually outside your station. And they had to take that child there. And every time I used to pass, I used to monitor so that I don't see a child who is begging on a wheelchair there. So yeah, of course, sometimes you're triggered, but I hope it's in a good way. At least you're triggered to do something, not just to hide your children and the rest.
I think I'd hide my children, and then I think I'd be so paranoid. I don't know how you do it, honestly. I think it takes a lot of grace to do what you're doing. So there's a question here. I hope I can see it. So what are the challenges you go through in dealing with OCSEA cases? Challenges within the law, and of course maybe just challenges in prosecuting this? Well,
in terms of within prosecution, it really has to deal a lot with how are we preserving the evidence. So in terms of chain of custody, how are these things stored, and the rest. And right now, what we are trying to do is that the collaborative trainings we are doing with the DCI and other stakeholders and even prosecutors, so that we know what is my checklist. What do I have to look out for when I'm presented with this particular type of case. So it has really been, how are we preserving, how are we giving out this evidence, and presenting it in court. We have certificates and the rest. So that has been probably a challenge in terms of also the fact that the law is really, not the law, the internet space is going very fast. It's very fast, because what we are even being told is that what we are seeing on the online space is maybe a third of what is happening. So there's the dark web and all that. So when you're talking about being overwhelmed, you're overwhelmed because you're thinking, God, any of their children who are maybe being abused in the dark web, and we can't right now reach these particular children, or how do we reach these particular children? So that has been now something that we are trying to see or grappling with. How do you reach these children? And you see, for OCSEA, we can be in this room and we are perpetrating OCSEA, isn't it? And the neighbor doesn't know. When they are being arrested, and the neighbor knows. So a lack of reporting, isn't it, has been one of the things that we are also grappling with. Either people don't know that it is a crime, or people don't know that it is happening, so that they also flag out. There's a child there who never leaves their house. Why? even during school holiday, even during
Is that a
school,
concern?
yeah, even when during school term, you hear a child, or you've ever seen a child, but they don't go to school. They don't. Those are things that should raise flags for people. But people just go about with their lives, because even for small offenses like not taking a child for basic education is an offense. So if you see your neighbor's child,
See, they're homeschooling, Linda.
okay, of course there's homeschooling,
Or
but
you have to ascertain that they're homeschooling.
of course there's homeschooling, but
Yeah.
there are children that you know are not being homeschooled.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there's no one who is homeschooling them, isn't it? Yeah. So all those type of things that are things that you, when you see, raise. Let the children of the social worker come there. But also in terms of challenges, we're also doing something to tackle some of these challenges. Because like as ODPP, we have the Children's Division, we have the Child Justice Unit that is now devolved in the counties. So that now if there is maybe something that is coming up or is an issue in the county, there's someone who can offer fast response as opposed to having someone come from headquarters to go and offer fast response in the county. So we have the Child Justice Unit. We also have guides. You know, sometimes how do you interview a child, Anita, who is not your child? Yeah, we have guides. We have the prosecutor's guide to children in the criminal justice system. So it talks about how to handle both the children who are in conflict and the children who are in contact, also who are witness and victims. Also, in terms of trainings, we are doing now the trainings that are between us, DCI stakeholder trainings. And also, right now we have the child-friendly interview rooms that we are coming up with. These child-friendly interview rooms are I would think a safe space for a child, isn't it?
Yes.
Because we found that the court environment sometimes is very even intimidating for you, Anita. When you go there, it's very intimidating. For a child, it's even like 10 times more intimidating. So for these particular children, we are trying to have a safer space. So we've set up child-friendly interview rooms where they are connected to equipment, ICT equipment. So we are connected to court, so that
So they don't have to go to court.
So they don't have to go to court. We can do a type of live video link evidence to the court. And also, one of the things, the international best practice we are trying to do with Lawyers Without Borders is pre-recording of evidence of the child, because you find that a child who has been abused, they tell probably the first responder, okay, or whoever it is that they first respond to, either the caregiver or a teacher. The teacher probably or the caregiver will, because maybe they are in shock or they don't understand what exactly is this that this child has told. They go to another person. The child is told,
So
tell this person, then also that person can offer maybe assistance to this particular child, maybe go here to the chief, go here to the police. They go and report in the chief, they go to the medical. So if we pre-record at least at first intervention, either at the police level or now using the child-friendly room, then that can be used even to examination in chief in court. So now this child doesn't have to keep on repeating all the gory details that happened to them. And maybe in terms of cross-examination, maybe something now we can work around with the courts. How do we now go about cross-examination, which can still happen in that child-friendly room, because now we can do it via video link, the Zoom and stuff like that.
Anyway, umetumiwa salamu hapa na Duncan Ondimu.
Oh, thank you.
And I agree with him. He says it's a great discussion. It's an area that requires constant capacity building.
Yes.
I think we need to go to schools and just shout this, because I don't think many children know about the 116 number.
Yeah.
They need to know. And they're also, I don't think they know the exposure with the gadgets they have. Because you're saying it's also just maybe you're playing a game and somebody makes friend requests. Nowadays, even YouTube Shorts, TikTok, games. I am so triggered.
Especially online chatting groups is where now, and you see children, they don't use maybe SMS like us. Even us right
even
now,
know what SMS
how
is.
Many times have you used SMS? You're using WhatsApp most
Even
of the
my
time.
mother uses just WhatsApp.
You see.
Yeah. So he says, Terry Ray Kriegler case 8 years ago stands out for me. The American was convicted for distribution of pornographic material of children and was sentenced to 50 years. Wow.
Yeah.
So, but then for distribution is an offense here, right?
Yeah.
Okay. What's the maximum you get for distribution here?
Another computer misuse, that's child pornography, and it's 25 years or a fine of 20 million shillings.
20 million?
Yes.
Yeah,
The
okay.
computer misuse and
There's hope.
cybercrimes. Yeah, there's hope. Yeah, there's hope.
Yeah. Oh, well, thank you so much, Linda, for coming on the show. I think we need to open up this discussion and include other stakeholders.
Yes.
So that we sing the story. I was so, what is it called, inspired to talk about this because I didn't know about it.
Yeah.
Yet I have gadgets, I have children, they have gadgets, there's internet, there's Wi-Fi.
And there's the law,
Yeah.
because a lot of people don't know there's the law. We have the Sexual Offences Act.
We don't know.
We have sexual offences, talks about things like sexual communication with a child. It talks about the child pornography. It talks about even child sex tourism. We have the computer misuse, as I've said, which talks about things like the child pornography, talks about cyber harassment. We have the Children's Act now also coming into play, which now gives what is online abuse and gives definitions.
You need to break those things down.
Yeah, which gives definitions. We have the Constitution because it talks about access to information, isn't it?
Yeah.
But it also talks about best interest of the child, which is now even our guiding principle when it comes to children. So we also have the law, and it's also not trying to tell people we have the law, we can actually get convictions for these particular cases. Please report them, and we see how we can.
I think one big challenge is reporting.
Yeah, please report them. And also in terms of even international treaties that we are signatories to, we have the Convention on the Rights of the Child, we have the optional protocol to the Convention on sale of children, child prostitution, and child pornography, which for us, even as investigators and also prosecutors, it talks about state giving measures or encouraging investigation and prosecution of this crime or crimes that lead to sexual abuse and exploitation of children. So we are not bereft. We have a lot. It's just that people can they come and we test these laws.
I think we need to really unpack these things to both caregivers, guardians, and now even the children. Because they understand when you tell them, be careful about who you friend online, be careful about your conversations online, then maybe they will be woke about the prevalence of this thing. I am really, I think I have learned something from when the training started and even today that I now also take home.
Yeah, and we can borrow a lot from some of the international practices, like what we are doing with the rooms, the child-friendly interview rooms. Because these are things that are being done in other jurisdictions. We have the UK, we have some being done in the US, like the Zoom links for children. And I tell you, Anita, a child having gone through such a devastating experience and now telling them to come face to face with a perpetrator, it takes a toll on them, even psychologically. So in terms of even their psychosocial support, we do make applications for them to go for psychosocial and counselors. So even the rooms for us will be an avenue where we can link up these particular children with the type of support that they might need, like counselors, because there will be some counselors who might be embedded in the room, so that first, even before someone comes to talk to them, there is a counselor who has assessed, are they ready to?
And they don't have to face them. It's
and now it's going to be online. So they don't have to really, we are saying face them, and they have to keep on looking at this particular person. Yes, of course, we have things like identification, but that can also be done through the Zoom links and the rest,
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Unless you na maneno ya mwisho, final words?
No.
Thank you so much. Thank you everyone who's joined us online. Thank you, Duncan, for your comments. I will definitely go back and read about the case. I bet Linda knows about it. We have heard about what globalization has brought, technology advancements, but with the good things comes with the bad things. And for today, the one thing we have seen is children are being exploited online, even here in Kenya. To your surprise, your child he's exposed for as long as they have a gadget, they have internet. And of course, duty bearers are doing what they're doing. There's a call to caregivers like us to also take care of the children and educate and inform them about the dangers that lurk in the web. So I think there's still more we can do about this OCSEA, and definitely unpack it with schools, caregivers. So maybe if you're watching and you want this discussion to come to where you are, just let us know, and I bet Linda will be glad to come and talk about it. We'll definitely come with the crew and just educate you about what the law says about OCSEA. Like she said, one of the biggest challenges is reporting. People don't report, and so they go unnoticed, they go unreported. Yet, it is prevalent. It is one of the fastest growing crimes in Kenya and the world. That's all for today. Thank you very much for engaging. You're welcome to continue engaging with us. We'll definitely respond and engage with you. Let's meet again next week and see what else we can be discussing. But again, like I'm saying and I'm repeating, this OCSEA thing must still be discussed, and we'll bring in more stakeholders to talk about this. Thank you very much. Have a blessed day, a blessed weekend, and see you next week.